Let's talk about the anatomy of the heart and also the way that blood flows through the heart into the body. So first of all, the heart is made up of a special type of muscle called myocardium. Anytime you see the term myo, this indicates muscle. And of course, cardium, it means cardiac, heart. So this is, myocardium is the heart muscle. And then there's a special sac that's shown here. It's a clear sac that surrounds the heart. This is called the pericardium, and its job is to basically protect the heart and also provide some lubrication to the heart. Now, here's what the heart looks like. And these pictures are really complicated because the heart is not a simple organ. So I always just like to draw the heart like we did in second grade to try to explain how the heart is made up. So right here in the middle of the heart, there's a wall that separates the left and the right side of the heart. And this special wall is called a septum. So the septum is really important because it separates the oxygen poor and the oxygen rich sides of the heart. Now, on this side of the heart here, this is the right side of your body. So think about your right arm. Okay, this is the side of the heart that faces your right arm. And this side of the heart is the left side. So if you think about your body, this is on the left side of your body. Now, the heart is broken up into 4 chambers. Okay, on the top are always the atrium. So you have a right atrium on the right side of the heart, and then you have a left atrium on the left side of the heart. So the atrium are always on top. Then on the bottom here, you have ventricles. Okay, so the bottom has a right ventricle and a left ventricle. Okay, so if we look back at the complicated picture, the right side of the heart is on this side. On the top, you have the right atrium, and on the bottom here, you have your right ventricle. Okay, pointing here, right ventricle, pointing here, right atrium. On the left side of your heart, on the top, you have your left atrium, and on the bottom, you have the left ventricle. Now, notice in this picture, the right side is blue, and the left side is red. That's because the right side has mostly oxygen poor blood, whereas the left side has the oxygen rich blood. Now, the next thing that you need to know about there's these special chambers that allow blood to flow from the atrium into the ventricles. Okay, there's one that on this side, and then there's one on this side that allows blood to flow from the left atrium to the left ventricle. These special flow pathways are called atrioventricular valves. Atrioventricular valves. These are valves. Remember, valves prevent blood from flowing backwards. So these valves allow blood to flow. So blood always flows from the atrium to the ventricle. So blood flows atrium to ventricle through these valves. The one on the right side is a special valve called the tricuspid valve. Tricuspid. And the one on the left side is the bicuspid. So once again, valves allow blood to go from the atrium to the ventricle. Some people have this disorder called a heart murmur. A heart murmur means you have a leaky valve, either a leaky tricuspid or a leaky bicuspid, and some of the blood flows backwards. So this is a leaky valve. Definitely not a great thing, right? Not good. Now that we know the basic anatomy of the heart, we have to walk through the pathway that blood flows through the heart. So let's start with the first pathway, which is called the systemic pathway. So the systemic pathway describes blood flow from the heart to the rest of the body. So the purpose of the systemic pathway is to carry oxygen from the heart to the rest of the body. So let's walk through the steps. The first step, step 1. In step 1, oxygen-rich blood leaves the heart through the aorta. The aorta is a type of artery. Remember, arteries carry blood away. So here's the aorta, so oxygen-rich blood is leaving the heart through this big artery called the aorta. Some of the blood is going to go up toward your brain. Some of the blood is going to go down toward your lower body. So after the blood has left the heart, oxygen gets delivered to your organs. Oxygen is delivered to organs. So let's take a look at this picture. You can see oxygen-rich blood has left the heart. It's going to go out to all your organs, your kidneys, your liver, your brain. All the oxygen is going to get dropped off at all your organs. Now the blood is oxygen poor. It's got to go back to the heart. So in step 3, oxygen poor blood returns to the heart. The way it gets back to the heart is through veins. And there's 2 special veins. There's one here called the inferior vena cava. The inferior vena cava is blood coming from the lower body back to the heart. And then the second vein up here, the superior vena cava, is blood coming from your brain and your upper body back to the heart. So that is the first pathway, the systemic pathway. Now we got to talk about the second pathway, which is the pulmonary circuit. The pulmonary circuit. Anytime you see this word pulmonary, this indicates something to do with the lungs. All right, so we've just ended the systemic circuit. We now have oxygen poor blood, which has entered the right atrium. So in our first step, oxygen poor blood is going to move from the right atrium through the tricuspid valve into the right ventricle. So oxygen poor blood goes from the right atrium to the right ventricle through that tricuspid valve. Next, oxygen poor blood is going to leave the heart through a pulmonary artery. So oxygen poor blood exits through the pulmonary arteries. Remember, arteries are for transporting blood away. Now, the third step, the blood goes to the lungs. And when the blood gets into the lung, it picks up oxygen. Blood goes to the lung and picks up all the oxygen from your lungs. So if we go back to this other picture, you can see oxygen poor blood has moved from the atrium, the right atrium, into the right ventricle. The oxygen poor blood has left through the pulmonary arteries. It picks up all that great oxygen from your lungs. And now it's got to go back to your heart again. So now in step 4, Now the blood is oxygen rich. It's picked up oxygen in the lung. So oxygen rich blood is going to go back to your heart through a pulmonary vein. So oxygen rich blood enters the left atrium through a pulmonary vein. That oxygen-rich blood is going to go from your left atrium to the left ventricle. So it goes left atrium to left ventricle. And then finally, step 6, that oxygen-rich blood can leave the left ventricle through the aorta. So O2-rich blood leaves the aorta. And the process goes back to the systemic circuit and we start all over again. So it's a cycle. It's a cycle of blood flowing through your body, returning back to your heart, going to the lungs, picking up oxygen, going back to the heart, and then starting all over again. So blood is constantly circulating through both these systemic, which is your body, and pulmonary, which is your lungs. So I know that was a lot of steps there, and it's hard to keep track with my drawings, but I did post 2 high-quality YouTube videos that are cartoon animations of this pathway, so they're on Blackboard, so you can watch those. Now, this week, our code word, our secret code word for the week, last week our code word was tequila, and I think we need something to go with that tequila, so this week our code word will be nachos. Nachos, definitely one of my favorite foods. We're going to need some nachos to go with that tequila, so stop this video now and email me the secret code word nachos for an extra bonus point on your next exam.